Good morning. It's great to be here as Williams. Williams is a technology-led company, and we've always been at the forefront of innovation in manufacturing and data. So it's with great pleasure that I join you here today. I'd like to introduce you to fellow panelists. So on my right, I have Simon Edmonds, who's Director of Materials and Manufacture at Innovate UK. On my left, I have Asif Mogal from Autodesk, who is the Manufacturing Industry Manager. Also, Zoe Webster, who is Head of Manufacturing for Innovate UK. And Dick Elsey, who is Chief Executive of the High Value Manufacturing Catapult. So let's get started. We often see in the media that there's some really encouraging figures for manufacturing. Yet at the same time, the UK manufacturing is said to be in decline. So who's right? And Simon, I'll hand that over to you, please.
Well, I don't think it's in decline at all. I think it's really important to get some sort of things in context about manufacturing. So whilst we're the 20th largest country in the world by GDP standards, we are actually the 9th largest manufacturing nation in the world, and that's something that we need to celebrate. And we are pretty significant on a global scale. 10% of our gross value added comes from manufacturing, and importantly, in these times, it accounts for over half of our exports. Between 2.7 million people directly employed in manufacturing. That is the size of the Greater Manchester area, I'm told. Don't know whether Nancy explained the population statistics, but it's the size of the Greater Manchester area. But more commonly, people think and people calculate that about 5 million people rely on manufacturing for their livelihood, of which it is largely above average pay. So it's a major contributor for the UK. But thinking about today, this conference, the next 2 days, manufacturing accounts for 2/3 of all business research and development across all the sectors. Manufacturing is an activity, but it accounts for 2/3 of business R&D. So, yeah, I think, if you go back to the 70s, people will say, the UK used to make everything, and the argument is we used to make a lot of things, we used to make a lot of volume, but actually we didn't make a lot of high value. I think we've moved into a place where we're a very high value, lots of supply chain activity here in the UK. And I think if anybody thinks this sector's in decline, we need to start educating them that they're not. And we've got great people like Williams helping people from one sector to the other. So I'm pretty certain this is not an area of decline.
Well, in that case, Simon, why does the government need to get involved? Can't industry look after itself?
Well, yeah, industry, with 2/3 of business R&D, it does look after itself to a large extent, but the need for collaboration, the need for cross-sector innovations from one place to another, it just doesn't happen automatically. People need to take risks. Risks are pretty difficult to do. Financing risks is difficult. And we need to make the UK a place attractive to inward investment, people to come here, locate their supply chains here. 5 years ago, we started the Catapult, 7 centres. Dick will talk more about that. Part based on the Fraunhofer model in Germany. Now that's been around for 70 years. It's part of the German system now, powers their manufacturing economy. And very quickly under Dick's leadership, the Catapult has got itself on a par with the Fraunhofer production cluster, which is a cluster of similar centres supporting their key industry sectors. So I think there is a definite role for the public sector to match the private sector. We will be announcing next week our first competition in materials manufacturing. We're going to fund 64 projects with 170 partners, 25 million in total. from 25,000 feasibility studies to examine whether the idea is great, lasting 6 months, to 3-year contracts, 1.6 million sort of grant. The competition for that was intense, as they are for all of our sector competitions at the minute. Absolutely intense. And we could only fund the top 30%. So there is another competition opening on the 21st of November.
Okay. So how does the government know, and Innovate know where to invest and when to invest in order to best support industry? So Zoe, I'll probably pass that over to you.
It's about spotting opportunities, and in the UK we've got the benefit of a set of really good sector-based business groups, things like the Automotive Council.
Sorry, I think you're, could you?
I don't know.
Is this?
That's better. Okay. I'll start again. It's about spotting opportunities, and in the UK we've got some great sector-based business-focused groups like the Automotive Council, like the Chemistry Growth Partnership, who are there to work out which technologies we need for the UK to be competitive. So we can listen to them, we can look at their visions and roadmaps, and we can work across our wider networks to get insight into the opportunities coming up. So really a lot of those opportunities are actually cross-sector in nature, which I think Simon hinted at. So that's how we start to look at where to invest.
Okay. And take the same question to you.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick sound check first. Right, well, we've had the High Value Manufacturing Catapult in place for 5 years as the go-to place for advanced manufacturing in the UK. And you can imagine we're working with companies at the absolute cutting edge of new manufacturing technology. So we're uniquely positioned to understand the needs of industry both now and going forward. So we're seeing it, living and breathing this stuff on a daily basis. And we're also working with policymakers and government to advise them from the stuff that we see. So we've got a really good handle through that process on what manufacturing needs to be competitive in the future. And we work with some very progressive companies. Autodesk with Asif here is a very good example of a global player who is very advanced in digital engineering and manufacturing, and they've got a very strong presence here in the UK because of the ability to network with and collaborate with companies.
Dick, so Asif, as Dick said, you're an international company. You've got a presence in the UK. Why the UK? What's the incentives to do business here? And
okay, so sound check. Is that working? I spend all my time speaking with leaders of design and manufacturing organisations. And we're constantly pestering them and asking them, how ready do you feel for this future of making things that we're entering? And they've given us some feedback and got some data here to share. And I'm not going to bore you to death with some data geeking out here, but there's 2 points I wanted to bring out. Number one is that business leaders don't feel ready for the future. In the 5 key areas that we feel are critical to companies who need to really take advantage and monetize things like Industry 4. So you can see those on the screen. And the more interesting question is why? Why are you not more ready than you currently are? And if we advance to the next slide, we're told that there's 2 reasons. Number one is that they don't feel they have access to the up-to-date design and manufacturing skills / capabilities / technology that they need to improve their levels of readiness. And number 2, slightly more worrying, is they simply don't have the time to go out and find out the art of the possible. So there's only 52 shopping days till Christmas. So if I was writing a letter to Father Christmas to say, this is what I'd like for a business strategy or an industrial strategy for the UK, it would be to enable leaders of manufacturing organisations, incentivize and motivate them to go out there and explore the art of the possible, identify the technology or the strategy that's most impactful to their business and implement it rapidly. And that means to have an environment where we're motivated to focus as much on adding value and opportunity creation as we are encouraged to cut costs and eliminate risks from our business. The second thing would be to create an environment where we focus as much on advanced design skills and design automation as much as we do on advanced manufacturing and manufacturing automation, because you just can't have one without the other. And the last thing is to build an environment where we're developing an agile, multi-skilled workforce who are digital natives that we can transplant into our businesses and get them to apply their forward-thinking approaches to our traditional design and manufacturing challenges. So if that's what's delivered on Christmas Day by Father Christmas for industrial strategy, I think people in the audience would have a very positive reaction to it, particularly in this very weird no man's land we're living in, post-Brexit and pre-Trump. So.
And Zoe, over to you again. In your opinion, what should manufacturing and materials companies be investing in terms of innovation?
Okay, well, I've switched technology now, so hopefully this will go smoothly. Well, thinking about what to invest in now is really hard. Thinking about where manufacturing is going to be in 5, 10, 20 years' time is really, really tricky. We know that. We do that day to day. What we can say is that the 1.8 billion people joining the global consuming class the next 15 or so years are going to be much more demanding of manufactured products than they are now. They're going to want them tailored to their own needs, they're going to want them delivered much more quickly, and they're going to want them embedded in services that are always available on demand. They're also going to these manufactured products will need to be made from resources that are available at a cost that is acceptable to both people's wallets and the planet as well. So all this provides lots of opportunities for UK companies who focus on quality and value.
And where do you think these opportunities are going to be?
I think there'll be lots of opportunities around, for example, manufacturing readiness. So we'll hear later on about the technologies that will be developed in for future cities, for health, for example, but producing new product ideas in those areas is good, obviously, but if they can't be manufactured to the right time, quality, cost and scale, they're not going to make it to market and they're not going to make UK companies competitive. So we need innovation in how things are made and what they're made out of. There are also opportunities, for example, in resource efficiency, going back to what I said about materials. There are business risks associated with materials availability and cost. So again, we need innovation, maybe new business models around services that make it much easier to use materials many times in a circular economy. So there are all sorts of opportunities. I think, and yeah, one specific case of opportunity for UK companies right now is in additive manufacturing. So, for example, we're seeing additive manufacturing used a lot in rapid prototyping. We're not seeing it so much yet being used in production, in anger. So we need to do that. And UK companies have got the opportunity now to find the killer applications of that technology and to move forward.
Mm-hmm. So there are businesses looking into these areas at the moment. What about the businesses that aren't?
Well, we work with a wide range of business. Large or small, we'd argue that every business needs to adapt and be flexible to survive and thrive in global markets. So for those companies that may be finding it difficult now, if they have an appetite to innovate and grow, we can work with them either through competitions or with the KTN or the Catapult to find those opportunities, to understand what they mean for their business and to move forward with those.
Okay. You haven't mentioned Industry 4.0 yet. There's been a lot of talk about that. Where does that fit in the grand scheme of things?
I think Esther will talk a bit more about this in a bit, but I mean, for us, Industry 4, it's using transformative digital technologies and approaches to, again, transform manufacturing materials. And there's no place for that, not just within the factory itself, but within supply chains and reaching out to the consumer. So manufacturing, to be flexible, to be transformative, will need to be software defined and much more flexible. We can use digital technologies to improve connectivity between supply chains, businesses, and reaching out to consumers, to mine data, perhaps sensor data from the manufacturing process to optimize processes and move on, and also to better support the integration of design, manufacturing use, and through life services. And in the UK, we have hugely strong world-class digital and creative sectors. If we can harness them more effectively in manufacturing materials, then that will have a huge, significant impact on the UK economy, I believe.
Steve, as Zoe mentioned, data, digital software, that's your area of expertise. Would you like to comment a bit from?
Okay. So we get asked this question all the time. It's a bit like the meaning of life. So people always say to me, yes, Industry 4.0 is coming, but what on earth does it mean? So I'm just clicking through a few slides here. So the way we like to answer that question is to put our customers at the absolute center of our thinking. So It doesn't really matter what you design, what you make, and what you sell. To sound slightly mercenary, you do it to turn a profit and some turnover. Okay? And to do that, you follow a process. The process might look similar to this. You might come up with a concept, someone designs it, it's made maybe by yourself, maybe by someone else, someone sells it, it's out there in the field and it's operated and retired. Okay? And the more times you follow that process, the more turnover you generate, the more effective you are at that process, the more profitable you could be, which is great. And so everybody that I speak to is on this continuous crusade to look for strategies to improve the way they do business. And those strategies fall into buckets of productivity, process, or innovation, which it's great in itself. However, and when you step back and look at what we're trying to do, we're actually trying to improve a business model that's based on selling a fixed value product for a fixed price, which will only ever go one way. And if you think about all the disruptors that are happening out there in the industry that have fundamentally redefined the nature of demand, the nature of how we design products, the nature of how we produce products, those strategies just don't cut it anymore. They're not as sustainable as they used to be. What our customers want us to help them with is to move away from offering a best fit concept to a highly personalized, configured product or solution, almost tailored to their market as if it was a market of one. They're looking to then collaboratively develop that with their customers and supply chains side by side in a safe, secure kind of environment, because it increases the chances of spotting that really transformative piece of innovation. They're looking to introduce flexible manufacturing at the right point in their business. So we're not talking armies of robots and iRobot and Skynet going active. But we're talking about collaborative robots, additive manufacturing where it makes sense, improving or subtractive manufacturing where it makes sense, hybrid technologies, pop-up factories, configurable factories, making factories available at the point of demand. There's a whole big topic here that the customers are looking for help with. And then they're looking to change their relationship they have with their customers from one of, I'm going to sell you some stuff, to you are going to have an experience of buying and owning and maintaining my solutions with us, and we'll take you on a journey. That journey is really built on the smart connected devices they will offer to their customers. That's where we see Industry 4 and IoT kind of fitting in. Because those smart connected devices will allow that company to grow their revenue by offering a range of services where their product is at the center. So predictive maintenance, insightful services, telling somebody that perhaps a product's about to fail and having a spare available before it fails. Analytics. That's where the growth of our customers is going to come from. But the really, really interesting bit is the data you generate from how your product is used can be fed back into your development process, making it truly agile. And so if you can do this again and again, you have what I call repetitive advantage. And if you do it enough times, you get something called competitive separation. So when people say to us, what on earth does Industry 4.0 mean? We say, it's just how we see the future of making things. And this is a message we've been taking out on the road with some fantastic support from Dick's organisation, the Knowledge Transfer Network, Lloyds Bank, and a couple of our other partners. As we're on this crazy, mad mission to find 1,000 British design and manufacturing organisations and enable them to boost their productivity and innovation capacity, but very practically. One great example is a company called Penny Hydraulics, a hydraulic lift manufacturer, already had technology in place. They didn't realize how to use it effectively, but just by switching on a few features, they were able to increase their manufacturing capability by 40%, grow their revenue by 150%, all from a piece of tech they already had. What they're doing with that saving is reinvesting it back into the business to look at the next level of innovation they want to have. So I'm on a mission to find 999 more of those. So if any of you are interested, there's a really catchy website address up there. Just contact us, because we will help you by putting in student experts to apply some of their digital skills and knowledge to apply to some of the traditional problems that you're facing. And I could bore you to tears with more examples, but I'm not going to, so I'll hand back to you. Sorry.
Thanks. I like that phrase, competitive separation. I'm sure that's something our racing drivers would appreciate from time to time, but I rarely get this season, I think. So thanks, Asif. So how can Innovate UK enable this process? How can it help with the manufacturing readiness? At what point does it come into effect?
Okay, well, broadly speaking, I hope this is working. Broadly speaking, we can support businesses in two main ways. We can help offload some of the risk in trying new stuff. So we can provide funding. So as Simon mentioned earlier, we're about to fund a whole bunch of projects in this area, and we plan to do more of that. And we can connect people as well. So we can connect them up with the KTM, with other businesses, the know-how facilities, the people they need to take those ideas forward. So very broadly speaking, we fund and we connect.
Okay. So, Simon, over to you now. What does manufacturing readiness mean to you?
So manufacturing readiness is getting companies to that state of manufacturing readiness, taking on board everything that Asif have talked about, that Dick will talk about. We all know the UK is tremendously strong at invention, has a world-class science base. Nancy was here this morning. That's a world-class science base, graphene invented here in Manchester. We create brilliant intellectual property in the UK. But we've not always been the best at translating that either through manufacturing or just translating it through to commercial success. A couple of examples, one we'll talk a little bit more about: lithium-ion batteries, LCD displays, both invented here. Clear inventions the UK made, but commercialized on the other side of the world. And we'll talk a little bit more about some work on lithium-ion batteries between Dick and I.
And Dick, what about the challenges and risks associated with businesses at the moment?
Yeah, well, bringing new technology, particularly if it's radical shift, is not an easy process. It inevitably involves investment in kit and equipment and expertise. The worst part about it is you're not 100% certain of the outcome. So it's kind of riddled with risk. And us Brits are, generally speaking, a reserved nation and slightly risk averse. And the investment community, particularly in the UK, is risk averse. So you've got this sort of compounding effect of risk, and that's why it's difficult. But that's why the High Value Manufacturing Catapult was formed through its 7 centres to help companies bridge that risk from the concept that they've got and the ability to get it into market. And companies of any size across any sector can come and use the kit and equipment we've got in the Catapult. We've got £600 million worth of assets, buildings, kit and equipment, 1,900 engineers, technicians and scientific staff, and world-class facilities to enable people to collaborate. And we're working on something in collaboration called horizontal innovation. It's a pretty simple concept. The technology or process that we develop in one market can easily be deployed into another. So you're thinking of taking aerospace technology, which we're developing, can easily be deployed into marine or even construction. We're in our 6th year of operation. We just had our 5th birthday, and the results are looking pretty good. Last year we helped over 3,000 industrial clients on well over 1,800 projects. More than half our clients were small and medium enterprises, and our clients collectively contributed £70 million to our activities next year. So it's pretty clear that we've got an offer that business understands and, most importantly, is willing to pay for. What are the kind of benefits from that? Well, we're developing new factory layouts, more efficient assembly processes. You've heard about Zoe talk about making stuff in new ways through things like additive manufacture. We're working on every form of working with metal you can think of, and things like composites technology, carbon fibre, which of course you'll understand well from your work, and things like graphene. And we make no excuses within the High Value Manufacturing Catapult. We've got a very successful formula. No surprise, I'm calling for the fact we do more of the same. And the other thing that we're working on, as we've just been talking about, is trying to demystify Industry 4.0, particularly for SMEs. And that's why we're pleased to be working with Asif and others on that process.
I mean, I can vouch for that actually happening. So Williams, this week, in fact, we're using the £2.5 million press at the National Composite Centre to do some R&D. So that's evidence that we have that it's actually working. So. And how do you see opportunities going forward? How do the HMV catapults really help?
Right. Well, it's this place to collaborate, bringing public funding and private sector funding together with great facilities. Our culture is to create a place where engineers, technicians can work together in a light touch environment devoid of politics. And in my view, being an engineer, if you put that in front of engineers, they'll naturally collaborate. So that's what we create. And we're all about trying to create technologies that are ahead of the curve, getting manufacturing prepared, this stuff ready for launch. A really good example is the industry that brought me up, automotive. In the UK, very interestingly, the automotive industry wants to self-disrupt on electric vehicles. Rather than have the whole world of electric vehicles come and take us over by surprise, the car industry in the UK, forgive the pun, wants to be in the driving seat. So we're pushing forward hard with innovative technologies. And at the center of that, no surprise, is batteries. And don't think of batteries as being the fuel tank. Think of batteries being the new engines. And we're doing an awful lot of work on that. And we have at Warwick Manufacturing Group, one of our centres, the High Value Manufacturing Catapult Energy Innovation Centre. And that's unique in Europe in that it can take a battery from pure chemistry, as in chemical powders. We can make the electrodes, the cells, put the electrolyte in, make them into packs, into modules, and then test the full module. So we've got a full service provision to help industry with that scale up. And Simon mentioned earlier on lithium-ion batteries, the one that got away. Well, we're absolutely bloody determined. We're not going to miss the opportunity with some of the great technologies that we're working on. So we've now got an instrument in the UK that can help lock that value into the UK. And we're already working with a number of names your mum would recognise in the car industry to push that forward, to give the UK significant competitive advantage. And we're currently building a semi-automated facility for module and pack build, which will be available at the end of this year. Okay. Some good stuff.
Yeah. Simon, would you like to comment on that?
Well, yeah, I saw a presentation with Dick a few weeks ago about the work the team is doing at Warwick. It's definitely a step change in battery technology. What they will be doing there will actually put us back a bit more into the global front line. A lot of the automotive sector will look at it, and then we'll use that in a whole pile of other sectors. There's no question of that. We have a powerful Catapult Network, so we're gathering together about 5 of our colleagues to think about how battery technology can be used, future cities, how it can be used in city solutions, transport of the future, energy systems, how it can help our grid. We've also got, outside of the Catapult network, we've got innovation and knowledge centres. One of them, all of them are presenting here outside. One in South Wales, my hometown, or my home region, is called Specific, and they're here. Go and see their technology. We have built a zero carbon house, rather the team there. It's a really clever engineered solution using materials all made in the UK, put together in a superb package. We're just about, the team are building a sort of cul-de-sac in Neath. That's my hometown, so I'm definitely invested in this. Along with Swansea University, who provide the research. So we have research, and we have a set of people, and we're on a journey with this zero carbon house. Everybody we've presented it to is quite enthused by it, so we're getting a groundswell of support, and we're even showing it in India next week. So there's some really interesting stuff, and inside that is some battery energy storage, which I'm sure we will be using back out of the Warwick group. So it all connects somewhere.
Dick, where do the high-value manufacturing catapults sit?
Well, while we've got pictures of cranes behind us, you saw Skanska on the introductory video. We're busy transferring technology from aerospace and automotive into construction. They want to build lots of houses. They need to build lots of houses. And are they going to build them brick by brick like we did 350 years ago? No, we're going to have completely different ways of building houses. And progressive companies like that want to learn from other industries. So at AMRC, the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre, we have Factory 2050. It's the UK's first fully flexible and reconfigurable factory, and we're transferring aerospace knowledge across to construction. So it's the use of additive manufacturing, automated assembly, virtual reality, all to help construction improve its productivity both on-site and, more importantly, off-site modular construction. At the Manufacturing Technology Centre in Anstey, we've got the National Net Shape and Additive Manufacturing Facility, and we're working with industry to create the UK's first additive manufacturing strategy, to see how different sectors can exploit this new way of making things by 3D printing. And MTC have produced the world's largest 3D printed component for aerospace, which is currently airborne, undergoing flight trials. And at the other end of our portfolio, we've got the National Biologics Manufacturing Centre in Darlington, which is transforming the whole outlook for drugs. Rather than make 1 million versions of one tablet, they're exploring how to make 1 million different drugs, all unique for individuals for things like cancer therapy.
Impressive. Simon, would you like to come in here? You've helped develop the Catapult program. How do you see that?
Yeah, we have a fantastic set of facilities in the Catapult program. Ruth mentioned them in her opening. It's a sort of place where we call it a neutral space where people come and collaborate. It's not a competitive environment. We treat IP very respectfully, but we also link, Dick mentioned some of the statistics, with a huge amount of the academic base. The Centres of Innovative Manufacturing, the EPSRC fund. So we've got a job of making sure all of these institutes are joining up together, working as collaboratively as possible. And catapults have the best asset, apart from the equipment and everything else that you see, the best asset are the people that work there. That's what you really also go, because the people know how the technology works.
So we're nearing the end of the session now, so I'd just like to ask the panelists to take home messages for innovation and manufacturing in the UK. So possibly Simon, start with you.
Okay, so take home. So prior to joining Innovate UK or Technology Strategy Board, I spent a lot of time in government. It is absolutely clear manufacturing matters. You just have to look at, the issues in the steel sector this year, the passion and concerns that raised in communities, amongst stakeholders, amongst politicians. Look at the whole debate around Nissan and what's happened this last weekend. Manufacturing really matters. It's a deeply intensive R&D sector, and our job is to make sure that we retain that, we keep our supply chains and we keep our skills invested in, and we create some really good inward investment. And I think finally, when we all ask Greg Clark tomorrow, we're going to need an industrial strategy with innovation at its core, so an innovation-led industrial strategy.
Yeah, I'm going to break away from the script. I'm calling, as we discussed things with the Secretary of State, we've got a very, very powerful innovation engine in the UK, which is a combination of the research councils, Innovate UK, and an implementation instrument called the Catapult Programme, which I've lived and breathed for the last 5 years. We need to stick with it because it works.
Asif?
So take home. So access to technology is not a barrier anymore. Cost of it is not a barrier anymore. So my message is go out and explore the art of the possible, because there's things you could do which are once thought of as science fiction and now science fact. If you don't have time to explore the art of the possible, then we're very happy to drop a student expert into your business at our cost to work on an innovative project for you, to accelerate your journey into this future of Industry 4. So go out, explore the art of the possible. That's my take-home message.
Thank you. Zoe?
Briefly, there are plenty of opportunities for transformative manufacturing materials capabilities that are more flexible, more resource efficient, and much more powerful. And actually, we want to make sure that it's the UK companies who are either doing the disrupting or see it coming and react in good time.
Okay, well that's all for this session today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your of the event here today. It just leaves me to thank Zoe, Asif, Dick, and and Simon, and thank you for your attention too. Okay.